What's up, guys? Welcome to another Location Rebel case study. This one's really fun because Avery's been a part of Location Rebel for a couple of years now, and she's got such a cool story. She's lived in Kuala Lumpur, she's got a couple kids, they've traveled all over the place, and she got started with SEO writing and has moved on to a number of other things, and Location Rebel is a big part of that. So we're just going to talk a little bit about her story and how she got going. So Avery, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
It's awesome to be here.
So where are you right now? Because I can never keep track. You're all over the place.
I'm in Mexico right now, enjoying the warm weather. I want to be in more like North American time zone, so this is where we are this year.
It's perfect. And this is actually the second time we've tried recording this call because we found out the Mexico internet still isn't necessarily up to speed yet. Literally,
no
pun intended. But anyway, so let's back way up. A couple of years ago, you're thinking about, traveling, you're thinking about online business. Like, where were you at? Were you unhappy? Like, what were you doing then?
We were just normal, working in the suburbs, working our normal jobs, whatever. And I wanted to create an online income. And my biggest problem was that I didn't know anybody who was doing it personally. It's one thing you can read people's blogs and you can do that kind of thing, but I didn't know anyone personally. So that was a problem. So Location Rebel for me, when I saw there's this community, that attracted me in a huge way because I thought I need to talk to people who are actually trying to do this. Because people in real life I couldn't talk to, because if I did, I would sound like a dreamer,
Totally.
like this was delusional, like who does this? Like you have a perfectly good job, you got a degree to do this great job, and now you're going to throw it all away to do what? So I needed somebody who I could talk to. So yeah, the community was a huge benefit because I could finally find people who got what I was trying to do, and who I could bounce ideas off of, even just reading their posts sometimes was therapeutic because you'd see what they're going through and see that you're normal because you're going through it too. So it's huge.
Well, it's one of those things you think about it. It's like this idea of like solopreneurship. It's like everyone's like, oh, I'm going to go off on my own and do this thing. But you realize if you try and do it on your own, like that's like the kiss of death because
it is.
You're trying to go against the grain. You're trying to do something like new and different. You're not really sure what you're doing. You don't have a ton of confidence. So I think having that community just is like, oh, I'm not alone. There is people that are doing this, and having that support and that accountability, I think is just a kind of a huge thing.
Oh, it's invaluable. Like I personally, I don't think very many people are going to be able to get it done on their own. Like it is hard, and there's ups and downs, and there's so much self-doubt, and let's face it, none of us are taught how to start a business in school. That's not generally a big focus of things. So having people you can talk to and bounce things off of, and it's huge.
Totally. So you found the community, you found all sorts of support, people that wanted to do the same things as you. As you start going through the program, like how did you make your first dollar? Like how did you start actually like making a living online?
Well, I'd had a niche website that I've been working on prior to Location Rebel, and that was useful because I learned a bit about SEO and Google's algorithms and the ranking and all that jazz. But the trouble was it wasn't making me much money. I put in hours and hours, and it was well written and everything else, but I wasn't getting traction. Most of my competitors were buying links, which is against Google's policy, and I was just like, I can't compete with this. Like so
it's like I don't want to play this black hat game. Like, and you really have to know what you're doing if you're going to do that. So that's scary.
You got to cover up your tracks so that you don't get your site slapped down by Google. So it's hard. And so knowing that, then Location Rebel, you've got all these blueprints in there. And so I read through all the blueprints, and I knew from my experience with a niche site that the SEO one wasn't going to be for me, because then you got to do all that behind the scenes stuff, which to me, number one, is boring. Oh, I find it boring. I tried it once. Took a course on setting up, I think it was a private blog network. And I was like, well, maybe I could. I don't know. I can try it. And so, but I was just so bored. Oh, it was terrible. So the SEO writing, you started seeing people in the forums having some success with it. And I thought, well, I don't know, like seriously, people hire me to write even though I just have samples to show them? Like that just, to me, coming from the world I came from, seemed too good to be true. But I got the guts to try it because of the forums and the blueprint. So I did. And to my shock, I got paid to freaking write. Like that was, to me, it was amazing. And I mean, not to give people the wrong idea. It's not like right out of the gate. Like I write about on my site that I make $60 an hour. Well, that's because I bang out $230 articles per hour. So that's my $60 an hour. That's good. But in the beginning, beginning, it wasn't like that. I mean, my first few articles I wrote, I got paid like $5. I got $1.25, like, woohoo. You know,
but at the time, you're like, oh my God, I made $1.25. This is pretty cool.
Yeah. And you were happy with it, you know? So that was really cool. And then you just raise your rates. So even on Upwork, I made a few $100 within a few weeks on Upwork, you know? And then I moved off to cold emailing, which I got the guts to do again, because your blueprint mentions the cold emailing and all that jazz. So yeah, I mean, it was really very helpful. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. And so SEO writing alone by far more than covered. I mean, it's covered my Location Rebel purchase. God, I don't even know how many times over, but lots. Say lots.
Okay.
But I think the trouble is a lot of people underestimate, you've got to do the work, right? If you don't do the work, it's not going to work. And there's going to be a grind phase where you're working for peanuts. But that's expected because nobody's going to jump into anything that pays well overnight, you know? But if they're willing to do the work, yeah, it can work really well.
For sure. So, for those of you that are still researching Location Rebel, we've got like 17 different blueprints now. And the idea is like, learn these skills, and most of these skills, no matter what you want to do online, they're going to be super beneficial. So SEO, how to build a website, social media for business, and SEO writing is one of them. And that's the one most people start with, because I'm assuming you didn't have any, major background in SEO or even in writing, probably. It's like...
No, I'd never been paid to write. My background in writing, my credentials are that I got A's and A+ in English through school. So
congratulations, better off than me.
I had teachers tell me I was a good writer. I had to take an English course at university because I was thinking of being a doctor at one point. And you had to take English. Why? I have no idea. What does that have to do with being a doctor? But anyways, I was never a doctor. But at the time I was planning, I got an A. That was my credentials. That's it. That I could write like for essays in school. And that I had my niche site that I'd written for. But I mean, that was just for me. I had nobody telling me that I was good at it in on an online sense. So yeah, no background. Just go into it with samples showing people you can write.
Totally. So here's a question. So you started doing this, a few years back. A question I get all the time is, does SEO writing still work? And it's like this one of those things that everyone's like, it can't still work. SEO, like Google's so smart and whatever. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've got my own opinions, but I want to know.
Sometimes people will say, oh, well, yeah, it's dead. And I've even had people write to me, oh, is it dead? I heard it's dead. I'm like, no, that's bullcrap. Because honestly, the only way Google's going to know what an article is about in any case is if you have words relating to the topic in your article, which is essentially SEO writing, except SEO writing, you're purposely putting it in the optimal place in the article based on what people think of Google. So you might prefer to put it in a headline compared to just randomly in a paragraph,
Right.
And I mean, SEO writing's changed. I mean, a few years ago, people were using, I think article spinners were more common on people building private blog network sites because Google wasn't smart enough to figure out what's going on. Now they know, so they actually need a little bit better articles. And on their actual website, they can't get away with crap articles that nobody reads to the end because Google pays attention. Does the person actually read to the end of it, or are they just skimming it and clicking off in 2 seconds? Google knows those things and has certain signs to tell. So I think the biggest thing that's changed in it is the expectations for quality have gone up. You can't get away with a crappy article. It's got to be something good. But the SEO part of it is always going to be into play, because if your article, if somebody's searching, like how to floss your teeth is an article. I have written actually several versions of that article for one client who has dentists on board. So again, an article like that, I mean, how does Google know if somebody searches how to floss your teeth? Are they more likely to rank an article that has that term in it somewhere, or an article that's all about, I don't know, has the words flossing in it and unwaxed and has teeth in it? They're more likely to rank it higher if it's well written and has that keyword. It's an extra edge that you're giving your article in the rankings. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I mean, there's tons of websites. I was Googling the other day to find how many websites are on the internet right now, but it was an obscenely high number.
Yeah.
And it's only growing, and the use of the internet's only growing. All these people need content. There's small businesses all over the place that need content for their blogs and that to help them rank. And most of them don't want to write it. Either they're not good at it, or they just don't have the time. So when they go hire someone to help them rank, that SEO guy, he doesn't want to write it either, or she. So enter the SEO writing. So even though it's not necessarily always called SEO writing anymore, some small business owners will just call it a blog post or whatever. It's still SEO writing.
And that's the thing, as this is coming out, we literally just released this a couple days ago. We've changed our SEO writing blueprint to our content writing blueprint and updated it, because I look at SEO writing or content writing or whatever you want to call it now, and I think there's more of an opportunity than ever for all of those reasons you just said. Because whereas, back 4 or 5 years ago, when people could spin articles or they could hire someone from Pakistan or India to write a horrible post for $1, those aren't doing anything anymore. So you need someone that can write, a higher quality article. That could mean that you're going to have to spend a little bit more time on it. But like you said, when I was doing a lot of this stuff a few years back, I could generally write three to four articles an hour, 300 to 500 words. And you bang through it and you look at what you get paid for it, and all of a sudden you're making $60 an hour. And so, you got to kind of practice and get up to speed with, your writing ability and all that kind of stuff. But I think that there's still a huge opportunity. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because I kind of have felt the same way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it kills me whenever somebody, I often think that people that write it's dead or it doesn't, whatever, they're just hoping to like clickbait to get clicked on and traffic for that search term or whatever, because honestly, I don't think any rational person that knows anything about how the internet works could possibly think it's going to be dead anytime soon, because there's just so much opportunity online, and half the businesses out there, probably half, I say half, but it's honestly probably the majority of small businesses haven't even really done anything to try to rank in Google. And as more and more people know that they actually have to do something to show up in local search results, they're going to need content. So I don't see it going anywhere.
Totally. So with all of that said, to the person who's sitting here, that they're watching this, they're trying to say, is this right for me? Can I do this? Like, is Location Rebel the real deal? Like, what would you say to that person?
Buy it. It's freaking good value, honestly. No, you know what? I have bought many, many, many courses in my day. I used to buy little cheap ones, $50, $20, $100 was an expensive one for me way back then. And I never got what I wanted out of it. And also what I've told to people about Location Rebel is you get access to the community, you get access to you. That's super valuable, because it's one thing to be given a course where you just have info, but all of our brains work different. What might be a question to me might be obvious to you or so-and-so. So having access to people that you can ask, sorry, I'm like shivering now. Somebody cranked up the air conditioning in here. But anyways, for me, the huge value of Location Rebel was just the community, because you can ask so many questions, and you get, with the blueprints, there's so many of them. I mean, there's more now than when I joined, but there's enough for almost anybody that somebody could get ideas. And I've met people from Location Rebel throughout the years in our travels. There's a guy we met in Thailand who's doing his own thing. There's a guy we met up with in Hawaii doing his own thing. I mean, he did there's a web design blueprint, if I'm remembering right. He took that and ran with it and lived in freaking Hawaii, and he could pay his way. But he networked his face off. He had to network. He had to put in the work. But he wasn't a web design guy before Location Rebel.
Yeah,
that wasn't his degree. Well, but he learned and he did it. So real people are doing this, and these are people that you might not even see in the forums. Not everybody likes to go to the forums, but for those of us that do, and I used them a lot when I joined, I mean, they're invaluable. And there are real people that have pulled this off. I just think people have to remember that it's going to take work. But at least you'll have a community of people you need around you to help you have the courage to try,
Totally. And I think like having that support is so important. Like you said, some people take advantage of the forums, some people don't. But I think what's great about it is if someone comes in and they're asking a question, they're like, you know what, for instance, I'm thinking about moving to Kuala Lumpur. I'd be like, let me send an email to Avery, who's I know is in our community, and can answer that question. Having that network around the world is so cool, because so many people are doing interesting things. You have the people that just want to be able to work from home and do their thing, and that's great. And then you have the world travelers and the people that are kind of all over the place. I still remember I had a last minute, like this was 2 or 3 years ago, I was in Bangkok, and I sent an email out to my list like that day. I said, if anyone's in Bangkok and wants to come, I'm going to be at this bar at this time. And we had like a dozen people show up. And I was like, who would have thought? Like sending random email, like we have a dozen members actually show up at something like that. So that was kind of cool. But that's a great example of how there is this network of people that are doing interesting things that are all over the place. So.
Well, it's hard to build a business if you don't know somebody building a business.
Yeah.
We all grow up knowing how to be an employee. You go to school, depending on what job you want, you maybe get a degree or a diploma from somewhere, or a certificate to prove that you're qualified, but none of us know how to start a business. None of us do, unless we were lucky and grew up in an entrepreneurial family, but most people don't. Totally. So Location Rebel lets you kind of like surround yourself virtually with people that are doing this and get access to you who's done it and been successful. So yeah, that's hugely valuable.
So Avery, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Like the kind words about the community and myself, they mean so much. And it's been so cool to see everything that you've built over the last couple of years. For people that have, whether it's questions for you about your Location Rebel experience, want to hire you to write, want to look at more of the stuff you're doing online, how can people find you? What's the best way to do that?
Best way is just through my website. That's like the hub that everything else is linked to. So it's just averybreyer.com, AVERYBREYER.com. Got a link to my free Facebook group, got a link to my books, and anything else I do will be linked to off there. So that's like a one-stop shop. I'm on Facebook is probably the social media that I'm most active on. Okay. The rest I'm pretty slack about, but yeah. So that's it.
Awesome. We'll make sure we link to everything below. If you have questions for her about her experience, let me know. I'll put you in touch. She's super generous, and I'm sure will help answer anything. But otherwise, you should go like enjoy the beach. I wish Portland is covered in snow, and I'm sequestered in my house right now, which is horrible. But oh well. So go enjoy the beach for me.
I will do that. All right.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
My pleasure.